Session 2 of Paul on Assignment. And we introduced Paul yesterday and said how he was God's chosen instrument to take the message to the Gentile world. We also saw that he had all he needed to do that. The truth is that each of us are on assignment. We each have a specific assignment from God. Now, it may not be as grand as the one Paul had, but he does gift us for something in particular. So we have all the gifts that we need for his purposes. What we need to add to that is the passion for God and the closeness of our relationship with Jesus. Now, our assignment might be quite different from Paul, but it has the same basic call. We are to bring Jesus to the world around us. So it's quite good to look at people like Paul and how they went about their task. And I'm going to start by looking at his time in Athens. The world in which Paul went into was a world where gods lived in massive temples, huge temples, great big stone temples, and their gods were made great statues, some of them 50, 60 feet high, of their gods. And that's what Athens was dominated by, all these temples, and especially the Acropolis, which has the Parthenon on top, and you can see it from everywhere in the city. It just completely dominates. Now, the God of the Jewish people has always wanted to live with his people, and we see this in the Garden of Eden, where God would walk with Adam and Eve in the quiet of the evening. But of course, Adam and Eve disobeyed, and that put a barrier between themselves and God. But God wanted to come across that barrier, and so first of all, he gave them the tabernacle. So in a world of great big stone, impressive temples, they had a tent. Later on, of course, they had a beautiful temple built by Solomon. But even Solomon said, which I find the cue, but who is able to build a temple for him, since the heavens, even the highest heavens, cannot contain him? And then there was a temple built by Herod, which was pretty awesome too. And in fact, at one stage, Jesus' disciples pointed it out to him and said, "Isn't it wonderful?" And Jesus' answer was, "Not one stone will be left here on another. Everyone will be thrown down." Because God cannot be contained in a temple. His desire is always to live with his people. Which he does now, of course, through the presence of Jesus. And Jesus is present to us through his Holy Spirit. So God's always wanted to show his presence through his people, who they are. And Paul came into a city dominated by temples, and his mission is to show who God is. His first step was to go to the synagogue, where he found Jewish people, but it also says he also found God-fearing Greeks, which means some of the Greek people had obviously given up their temples and their gods, because they must have seen that this Jewish God was a better God. So it's obviously by the way they lived. But he also went to the marketplace, and that's where he began debating with all the philosophers of the day. And what he spoke about was not Jesus' death, but his resurrection. And this was smart, because Paul had learnt enough about the Greek thinking to know that they did not believe in a resurrection. In fact, Greek philosophy says when you die, your soul goes and it joins with a massive world soul. So this teaching of Paul caught their attention, and they sort of saying, "What's this new teaching? We want to hear more." Now, some said that he's talking rubbish, but others said, no, we need to take him to the Areopagus. Now, the Areopagus was where the leaders would meet, and they would discuss things like which gods were acceptable, what philosophies were acceptable. A little bit like our Supreme Court, saying what's acceptable, what's right, what's okay. And so Paul was smart enough here to pick on the one thing that would grab their attention, and so he got an opening to share the good news. And that's possibly lesson 1 for us if we want to share the good news with our neighbours and our friends.